Joining us now for 5 insightful minutes is Blue Yonder's Corporate Vice President, Tim Robinson. Tim is here to take us through Blue Yonder's most recent consumer returns survey. Tim, first question, may be obvious, but I want to get your take on it. Why should retailers be reimagining returns?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, thank you. There are probably three key areas. I think the first thing is it's easy to forget that returns are inventory. Up to 15% of items that are fulfilled across the US come back as returns, and 95% of those items could be resold at full price. This is inventory. They should be treating them like inventory with the same level of urgency and priority. I think the second thing is the customer experience angle. Now that e-commerce, online shopping is such a big part of the retail experience, looking at understanding the details around returns, what consumers want, how the sort of experiences they want, but also thinking about your profitability and sustainability is very important in that regard as well. And I think, like lots of facets of e-commerce as it's evolved over the years, the buy net, buy it now, one-click experience, or new payment methodologies that have helped grow e-commerce. I think returns can be a differentiator. I think, unique returns experiences, the technology you deploy, the experience that provides consumers can set you apart from the rest.
Well, Tim, I can imagine a few reasons, having been a retailer myself, but what are you hearing from retailers are making returns so complex these days?
Yeah, that is the killer question for us. It ultimately comes down to the fact that returns are by their nature multi-channel. They come at you from all different directions. You remember when you were in retail, some of those returns come from digital returns platforms where you have some insight and information. Others, a customer has just ripped a label off of a parcel and filled out a form and sent it back to you. Some returns go back to the store, and store colleagues may or may not capture reasons as to why that return is coming back. It's like truly, truly multi-channel. One of our customers in Europe describes returns as their worst supplier. So 15% of all my SKUs come from this supplier. I don't have any visibility about when they're coming. I don't know what's coming, and I don't know what condition it's in. And I think that phrase really kind of describes why it's so complex.
So, Tim, I'm curious, from the chair atop which you sit, how are you seeing the best retailers address returns, and how does that ultimately benefit their end consumer or their end customer?
So, I would say over the last sort of 10 years, lots of time, money, and effort has gone into digitizing like the consumer front end. And there's been some great businesses that are born out of this desire to digitize the consumer experience. And that it feels like in many, many cases, particularly in the more mature e-commerce markets, that the job is done at that end of the experience. Now it's all about what to do with that information. You're now getting more and more information about returns than you ever were before. Who's returning? Where are they returning? Why are they returning? What are they returning? It's the best retailers in this space take that information and tailor both the choices and the options they give consumers. Do you get a refund? Do you get a full refund? A partial refund? Where can you take it in order to drop it off? And they're also using that data to make the best supply chain decisions. How quickly can I get this back into inventory and sell it for full price? How can I avoid this item going to landfill and ultimately having the value ripped out of it because the system required me to? So I think it's going to be it's now about differentiation and use of data and tailoring both under the hood logistics solutions and supply chain solutions to suit, but also those downstream customer experiences.
Well, Tim, you brought something up just now that I think is really important to highlight. In the Blue Yonder survey that you did, 55% of consumers that were polled said they were somewhat concerned about the environmental impact when doing a return. And only 27%, though, would continue a returns process if they knew that their item would go to a landfill. How do you expect circularity and re-commerce to kind of affect how we as consumers look at returns?
I hope. All the signs, the macro signs are that this whole return space will ultimately evolve into a sales channel. That is the signs we're seeing. The speed at which consumers are adopting C2C, pre-loved, re-commerce experiences in different parts of the world is really encouraging in that regard. It kind of highlights that there is no kind of old world, old school stuffiness around buying something that was ultimately pre-loved. I think one of the key things that the industry is going to need to provide consumers with in the not too distant future is absolute visibility of where your return is going. I think the idea that these items go back into a black hole and you don't see it is something which society is going to rally against as time goes on. But it's like, Chris's question earlier on about differentiation. I think the brand that gets there quickest, provides visibility and transparency about the second life of that item, I think could differentiate and could win. They could get ahead of the game really, really quickly.
That's a really, really interesting point that I've never thought about, giving visibility to what happens when you return an item and that being a point of differentiation for a retailer. So Tim, we always love to end with predictions and you just kind of made one there, but I'm curious, do you have any other predictions in terms of how you see returns evolving over the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I've got one, which I've clung on to for a while, which is starting to play out, which is generally, in most cases, retailers apply a one-size-fits-all approach to returns policies. It's 30 days return policy for everything. Right. Yeah, it's 30 days returns policy for every consumer, regardless of whether you're a consistent spender, a loyal customer. It's a blanket policy. And it's 30 days and full refund, whether it's a $10 t-shirt or a $2,000 handbag. The thing that I think the biggest move is going to be around using data. You understand every SKU, you understand its price, you understand its value, you understand every customer, you understand their value, you understand their behavior. The idea that we can't use that data to offer tailored returns policies and rules and experiences to consumers is nuts, really. And that's where I think it will go. I think we're having some fascinating conversations with retailers, particularly in the US at the minute, about using that data to tailor the rules, the returns rules, the policies for you, the consumer, based on what you're buying.
Wow, great stuff, Tim. Thanks for joining us. Tim.